I want to tell you a story about some lungs. There was a kid who had asthma in the 70s that almost died because there were no good asthma drugs, and the asthma was classified as a psychiatric illness. Oh, it's just anxiety. Oh, she's just faking it. Thank God she survived. Get to the late 80s and early 90s, and medications are starting to get better. Life is better. Not too many problems. Every now and then, get around a lot of dust, get around a lot of bugs, get around a lot of anything that was an allergen, and she might end up in the hospital. But for the most part, it was being managed better. Get to the 2000s, and the medications are so good that going to the hospital for an asthma attack is unheard of. Taking an allergy medicine in the morning, an allergy medicine in the evening pretty much takes care of it. Maybe need something else in the spring or the fall, certain times a year, but not year round. 2020, COVID hit. Before you hear the rest of the story, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Tish. I'm the girl in this story. Just a regular gal trying to get her health back from multiple serious illnesses and a serious TBI. And today's story is about the second thing that went wrong, not the first. In 2019, we were down at the beach for my birthday. Went into a convenience store that was packed with a line that snaked all around it and out the door. And a woman coughed right in my face. She was mortified. She couldn't help it. She was mortified. But, I'm like, no big deal. Don't worry about it. I caught pertussis from her. Do you know what pertussis is? Pertussis is whooping cough. And in Texas, at least, all of the public health information about pertussis is that adults only get mild cases of it, and that if you have an infant in your family, child, grandchild, you need to have a pertussis booster so that the baby doesn't get it. That's the messaging here. Well, it took 3 months of the most demonic sickness I've ever had for my doctor to agree that it was pertussis. A friend of mine heard me coughing and puking out in the parking lot, and she said, "Do you have pertussis?" Turns out her boys had had it the year before. So she said, "Go talk to your doctor." Well, he looked it up and he's like, "Yeah, I think you have it." But he couldn't figure out how to test me. Finally got tested. It was confirmed. 3 months and a $2.50 antibiotic beat the infection. The cough hung on another 3 months, which, if you know the timeline here, we're knocking on the door of the pandemic. Yeah, my mom got COVID and the flu and something else. Oh, shingles. But we didn't know at the time that she had COVID because it was the very beginning of the pandemic, and they weren't testing you unless you had been overseas or lived with someone, whatever. I took care of her for a couple of weeks, and sure enough, I came down with it too. That was at the end of February of 2020. I was so sick, I thought I was going to die in quarantine alone. I kept calling my doctor, and he had to, like many, he had to close his office, so you couldn't just go in and have an appointment. And he didn't know what to do, but he kept saying, "Do not go to the ER. Do not go to the ER. I don't want you to get COVID." And I kept telling him, "I'm pretty sure I have it. I have every symptom." But because I was the little girl that grew up with asthma, I also had a nebulizer at home. I was given a nebulizer in the 90s, early 90s, and taught how to use it and everything. So I had a nebulizer at home, and he called me in nebulizer medications, and we just kept trying to manage it at home, at home, at home, at home. Fast forward 60 days, and I can't breathe at all. At all. Like, this is the worst asthma I've ever had in my life. It's like on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the worst I've ever experienced, this was like an 11. And we kept trying. We kept thinking it'll resolve as I get over the COVID. It'll resolve. It'll resolve. And we just kept trying to manage it at home. And I was basically tethered to that nebulizer every 4 hours, sometimes every 2, just so I could breathe. Then I was able to get a little pocket portable one, and I would take it and try to go to Rio's football games. And I couldn't walk from the car to the bleachers without having to take a breathing treatment. And before the game was over, I would have to take another breathing treatment in order to walk back to the car. And I remember I was so embarrassed. But I wasn't going to miss my son's games. I just couldn't. So we kept trying. Finally, my doctor said, after a year, he said, "You're too sick. I don't know what else to do. We're at the end of my knowledge. We got to get you a pulmonary doctor." It took 18 months before a pulmonary doctor would accept me. And I don't remember how many we called, how many we tried to send referrals to, but nobody would take me. And it makes sense, because they're smack in the middle, up to their eyeballs on the front lines of COVID, right? And they just think I'm an asthma case. And Dr. Shetty and Nurse Candace took me, and it was about this time of year. They got me in like within a week. And she said, "Okay, we're going to have to do a pulmonary function test." And I put that off for a long time because of the cost. But I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So they kept trying. Oh my gosh, both of them kept trying to find medications, inhalers that I could afford that didn't give me psychiatric problems. And finally we settled on a program with Symbicort, which I had taken since I was young, and we do it 3 days a week now, not 5 or 7, and that works. I don't have any side effects from that. But eventually it got to the point where it was like, we can't do anything else until we do this pulmonary function test. So I did it. I thought I was going to die, literally die in that clinic that day, because those girls, bless their hearts, they didn't know what to do with me because I couldn't breathe. I was so sick. And the pulmonary function showed that I only had 30% lung function. 30%. They were expecting like somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80, and I had 30. If I had dropped just a tiny bit more, they would have had to put me on oxygen. That's how sick I was. My life revolved around the bed and the rocker, and that's about it. So then we tried Fasenra, and all of a sudden I started feeling great. Fasenra and Dupixent, they both kill the eosinophils in your blood, and mine were sky high. Mine were just ridiculously high. So, but after a year, my insurance company wouldn't fund Fasenra anymore. These are extremely expensive medications. So we switched to Dupixent. I qualified on other, like I had nasal polyps that qualified me. I had stomach polyps that I had other things that qualified me, so that the insurance said, okay, we'll pay for Dupixent. And I started Dupixent. And I was convinced, I still am convinced, that I've had some problems from the Dupixent. But in the medical world, if it's not reported in the literature, then it's not a real thing. They don't believe anybody until it's like hundreds of thousands of people, I guess. I don't know. But Dupixent gave me my life back. There's no doubt about it. I could not smell before I went on Dupixent. I had lost my entire sense of smell, and my ENT said, no wonder you're just packed with polyps. Nothing could get through there. Now I can smell, I can breathe through my nose, But the biggest thing is that I'm not tethered to a nebulizer. I don't even carry a pocket inhaler with me. Now, I know I should, but I don't. But when I got sick last January, I started to get sick in December, and by January I was very, very sick. We don't know what it was. Maybe one day we'll find out. Maybe we don't. It doesn't matter. But at that point, I chose to go off Dupixent. Dr. Shetty, I told Dr. Shetty, I'm like, I can't recover from this and deal with that shot every other week. So he said, okay, we'll take you off 4 months. Plus the 2 I'd already been off because I was just too sick to give myself a shot. Fully expecting that within the 4 months, my eosinophils would shoot back up and my asthma would be out of control again. Especially since I have 3 cats and a dog. And I was very, very allergic to cats. But that has not happened. It hasn't happened at all. The only time I've had to use a rescue inhaler since I went off is when Ray and I both had a respiratory infection. I was wheezy that week or 2, and that's it. Nothing else in 6 months. So my goal today was to not just go in and say, hey, I'm not going back on this drug. My goal today was to prove why I don't need to go back on this drug. I'm not trying to go against medical advice, but at the same time, I've worked hard, and I want to say something about that. I worked hard, but never got anywhere for a couple of years. In March, I got a coach, and my coach held my feet to the fire. Have you got your steps today? Now, keep in mind, if you haven't been following this whole story, we started at 500 and we worked our way up. Have you gotten your steps today? Did you do your exercises today? And then as I started to see progress, he didn't have to prod me like that. I just sent him the pictures of, or whatever. Talk to him, and I was like, yeah, I've got everything done already. So if there's something big like this in your life, health-wise or otherwise, and you haven't gotten anywhere on your own, consider that maybe if you bring somebody else alongside you, like a coach, they can hold you accountable and get you farther. We all have blind spots, right? We all have blind spots. And so that's something else that my coach is good about, is pointing out when I'm, eating pizza. He's like, pizza? Really? Are you sure about that? You sure that's a good choice? Things like that. Anyway, I could not have done it without his coaching. I couldn't hold my own self accountable to do it, because myself argues with myself and says, you can't force me to do that. I know. It's stupid. I haven't figured out which crazy Marvel character it is, but that's what happens. Must be, you know. So, anyway, this is a big day. It's a big win. This morning, my affirmation was that I am a walking, talking miracle. God can do anything, and He has, and I'm a walking, talking miracle. Just because my miracle came through science and medication doesn't make it any less of a miracle. I could have died back there in the 30% range. My lung function was not increasing. It was not going to increase without more specialized help. It was just going to keep falling and getting worse. And He led me to the exact right people, the exact right doctors, and the exact right coach for me. So, I try not to tell y'all who my coach is, but I have to today. My coach is my son. That kid who had to endure me sitting there at his football games, taking a breathing treatment, scaring everybody around me, not able to walk. You know, teenagers, oh my gosh, that kind of thing is terrifying and embarrassing all at the same time. And yet here he is now, a grown man who can see what I cannot see. So, Rio, I love you. Thank you. I guess I'm like ruined now because I'm crying, so I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody. If you have a friend that's looking for a lung doctor, Dr. Shetty, Nurse Candace at Lung Docs in Kyle or New Braunfels, I feel like they're the best. And if you're interested in bodybuilding coaching, reach out to Rio. It's Rio Mata. Right now, he's staying in that lane for now. So, well, not really bodybuilding, but, you know, weightlifting, lifestyle fitness, that kind of stuff. You can check out his Instagram. It's Rio Mata. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Bye.